Okay, we're back for our next two parts. One of those parts that we're going to be doing is we're going to read a picture book of Amelia Earhart, and we are going to be continuing to try to define and explain what a biography is. So we're defining and explaining or describing a biography. So we just did the circle map activity to basically just explain that a biography is a story about a person with facts. But now we're going to be just kind of doing a check. Does Amelia Earhart follow kind of the similar pattern of a biography? Does it talk about her early life? Does it talk about when she's young, going to becoming an adult? Does it talk about her struggles or problems? Does it talk about her achievements, like the good things she does? And does it talk about how she added or contributed to history? We also, after we're done reading, we're going to finish our thinking about biographies by doing step 4. So back in Schoology, it says step 4, open this Frere model in Notability. I'm going to send it to Notability. And you can do the same thing then too. Remember, I always do create new note. And in the top right corner, I hit import. And then I'm going to make sure I get my name in there. Make sure you write your name just so I know whose is whose. And then you're going to notice this looks really similar to the things that we have done in class with our vocabulary words. So like right in the middle, I'm just going to write the word biography. So as we are reading a picture book all about Amelia Earhart, I want you thinking about this Frere model. We are going to be given a definition again. What is a biography? We are going to be just writing down like some basic, like just little facts of what are some things that are in like biographies. Then we're going to give examples of biographies. So like one of the examples that hopefully is a picture book about Amelia Earhart. And then we are going to give non-examples. Like an Anansi book would be a non-example. So just thinking about this, again, we're really just trying to define and describe what a biography is. Going to go back to our book here, though. Oh, it did sign me out. Not fast enough. You'll get to watch me sign in. So as I'm signing in here, this book is on Epic, and all of the books that we're going to be doing for this biography unit are on Epic. So just to let you know, this is something you can explore. But I'm just going to read through this, and let's think about, does it talk about when she was born? Does it talk about her young life till she becomes an adult? Does it talk about her struggles and problems? Does it talk about her achievements or the good things? And does it talk about how she added? So, I added things to history. So, a picture book of Amelia Earhart. Amelia Earhart was born in Atchison, Kansas on July 24th, 1897. Her parents were Edwin Earhart, a lawyer for a railroad, and Amy Earhart, the daughter of a wealthy judge. In 1900, the Earharts had a second daughter, Muriel. So definitely, like right away, I'm already thinking, yes, it does talk about her being born in her very, very early life here. Amelia was not a quiet schoolgirl. She threw mud balls, jumped over fences, played baseball and football, and shot her own .22 rifle to rid the family's barn of rats. When she was 7, she made her own roller coaster using fence rails and a pair of old roller skates. Although other girls their age wore long, ruffled dresses, Amelia and Muriel Earhart often wore loose-fitting pants called bloomers. The Earhart girls' behavior was shocking to some people, but Amelia wrote later, some elders have to be shocked for everybody's good now and then. So definitely talking about her kind of growing up here. Amelia was 11 years old when she saw an airplane. It was 1908, 5 years after the Wright brothers made the first successful flight. Amelia wrote later that at the time she thought it was just a thing of rusty wire and wood. Not at all interesting. After high school, Amelia went to the Ontonk School in Pennsylvania. Amelia was tall and thin. In a letter to her parents from school, she drew a sketch of herself dressed in a suit with a pleated skirt and wrote, "I look like a broomstick wrapped round and around." And she wrote, "Did I tell you I have a reputation for brains?" So she has a good sense of humor too. And having a reputation for brains, meaning people think of her as pretty smart. But yeah, so definitely talking. So that was one of those parts of the thing, just kind of checking in. Talks about her early life, talking about her growing up into young adulthood, because now she's definitely getting older in school here. Amelia spent Christmas 1917 with her sister in Toronto, Canada. There, she saw soldiers who had returned from the First World War. Years later, she wrote, "For the first time, I realized what the World War meant. Instead of new uniforms and brass bands, I saw only the results of 4 years. Desperate struggle. Men without arms and legs, men who were paralyzed, and men who were blind." Soon after the holiday, Amelia quit school. She went back to Toronto, became a nurse's aide, and cared for the war wounded. So those are, I would say, some of her, achievements. I mean, not quite achievements, but these are the things that she's doing, some of these good things that she's doing, contributing to history. People don't remember her for that, but what a great thing. She's going to helping soldiers after, after the big World War. That's probably even some struggles for her too, having to go in and seeing that. That would not be an easy thing, but she's still going to do it. While Amelia was in Toronto, she went to a nearby airfield and had another look at airplanes. Some years later, she explained that, though I had seen one or two at county fairs, I now saw many of them. I hung around in my spare time and absorbed all I could. After the war, Amelia studied automobile engineer repair. The next year, she took courses in New York City at Columbia University and Barnard College. At first, she was preparing to study medicine. Later, she decided to do medical research. So yeah, it definitely shows that pretty smart, clever, and ambitious, wanting to do a lot of things. After the school year ended, Amelia went to be with her parents, who moved to California. On Christmas Day in 1820, she went to an air show, and 3 days later, she paid $1 for a 10-minute airplane ride. As soon as I left the ground, she wrote later, I knew I had to fly. In January 1921, Amelia took her first flying lesson. In July, she bought her first airplane. She paid for the lessons and airplane with money she earned working for the Los Angeles Telephone Company, and with money given and loaned to her by her mother and sister. Flying wasn't as safe then as it is today. Airplanes were powered by small engines. Amelia had several crash landings. Once she was thrown into an open field. Another time, her airplane turned over in heavy rain and Amelia held in by her safety belt, hung upside down. Definitely. Struggles? Yeah, definitely. I mean, air travel still, it's really, really safe now. But then, there are definitely some struggles and problems. I wouldn't say there's any one big defining struggle right now, but those are definitely struggles and problems for her now. In 1824, Amelia's parents divorced. She sold her airplane and bought a yellow sports car and drove her mother east to their new home in Medford, Massachusetts. Sam Chapman, a chemical engineer, followed Amelia east. Chapman wanted Amelia to marry him, but Amelia refused to become what she called a domestic robot, meaning somebody who just stayed at home and didn't do anything. At the time, she said, I don't want to marry anyone. On weekdays, Amelia had a job as a social worker in a community center nearby Boston, teaching English to immigrant children. On weekends, she flew for sport and as a saleswoman for an airplane builder. In May 1927, Charles Lindbergh became the first to fly across the Atlantic Ocean. The next year, Amelia Earhart became the first woman to make the flight. She was co-passenger aboard an airplane named Friendship. In June 1928, Amelia, Bill Stoltz, and Slim Gordon climbed into the Friendship. It was painted orange so it would be easy to find in case of an accident, and it was fitted with pontoons, so if they couldn't complete the trip, they could land on the ocean. Before the trip, Amelia telegraphed her mother, Don't worry, no matter what happens, it will have been worth the trying. While Stoltz flew the plane, Amelia checked maps and kept a record of their speed and altitude. She also looked out the window at clouds and described as marvelous shapes in white. She wrote, gulping beauty. On June 18, 1928, after 20 hours and 40 minutes in the air, the plane landed on the water in the harbor of Buryport, Wales. Amelia described the flight as a grand experience, but since she didn't pilot the plane, she said she felt like baggage. But being a navigator, doing the maps and doing all that, the calculations of altitude and speed and making sure, because that's a big thing for airplanes. Being able to make sure you're going the right way and you have enough fuel. That's a pretty important job, but You can tell she really wanted to be the one to fly. But talking about achievements, that was incredible, because just a year before that, Charles Lindbergh made the first flight, and just a year later, she was doing it again, and she became the first woman to do it. Very big achievement, really adding to history. Big thing here, it doesn't really say that, it's just kind of telling facts. There's not a lot of opinion in this book, but that's amazing. Huge, especially for women, showing that, yes, women are most of the time better than men. They can do just the same, or usually better than men can. Just my opinion. When the three flyers returned to New York, they were given keys to the city. They were driven in open cars in a parade down Broadway. People leaned out office windows for a look and threw down confetti to celebrate. Amelia Earhart was the first woman to fly across the Atlantic Ocean. She was an American heroine. Amelia Earhart wrote a book and newspaper and magazine articles. She gave lectures and allowed her name to be used on luggage, clothing, stationery, and in advertisements. In her speeches, she spoke against war and for the rights of women. Her schedule and endorsements were managed by her book publisher, George Putnam. On February 7th, 1931, Putnam became more than her publisher. He became her husband. Early the next year at breakfast, Amelia told him she wanted to fly across the Atlantic Ocean again. This time, she would pilot the airplane. She would go alone. Amelia Earhart took off in a red and gold single-engine airplane from Harbor Grace, Newfoundland on May 20th, 1932. She flew through strong winds, heavy rain, and thick clouds, often with the wings and windshield of her airplane covered with slush and ice, until she landed the next afternoon in a pasture in Londonderry, New Ireland, across the Atlantic. She said later that her landing frightened all the cows in the neighborhood. "Have you come far?" the first person to see her asked. Well, from America," Amelia Earhart told him. "Have you now?" the man said, not sure he could believe her. With this flight, Amelia Earhart became the very first woman, and just the second person after Charles Lindbergh to fly across the Atlantic Ocean. She became one of the most celebrated people of her time. In June, President Herbert Hoover presented her with a gold medal, one of many awards she received for her great achievement. Talking about big achievements, huge, this massive. Second person in history to do this, and even better for womankind. He called her a pioneering woman. Amelia Earhart said she just hoped her flight has meant something to women in aviation. It did. Amelia Earhart's many daring adventures meant a lot to women in all fields. So, that's why, like I said, a great thing for women. It's such a big achievement. It was showing, especially during this time in history. A lot of times men were given everything, and women weren't getting as many opportunities. And this showed that women were exactly the same. Exactly the same. So huge contribution to history. That's a big thing that she added to history. Amelia Earhart had other flying adventures. In January 1935, she became the first to fly from Hawaii to California. With that flight, she also became the first to fly alone across both the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. In April, she became the first to fly alone from Los Angeles to Mexico City. I'm just going to pause the video here quick, and I'll be right back.